You got your MAGA Mac guys here. McClellan, Jody McDonald. In less than 20 minutes, we'll be joined by Adam Kaplan from InsideTheBirds.com and the podcast Pro Football Network. I've got a new employer right now for the Pro Football Network.com, which is a good website and does shows on Sirius XM's NFL Network as well. So Adam coming up in less than 20. J-Mac, you threw out a couple of numbers on A.J. Brown as per his ratings on PFF Pro Football Focus, that they not only ranked the wide receivers overall, but in individual type aspects and plays that are called over the course of a National Football League game. And the numbers for A.J. Brown just jump off the charts. Slant routes, go routes. What were his ratings again?
He was number one in slant routes, which makes sense because of his size and his ability, physicality to get off the line of scrimmage. But he was number two in go routes. So, deep balls, essentially, which tells you that's what I was kind of talking about. Deshaun was obviously phenomenal getting behind people and tremendous tracking the football. He's one of the best receivers I've ever seen tracking the football. I think Randy was the best when it came to tracking, but Deshaun was up there. But the other stuff, is where somebody like AJ sets himself apart. And then, when you can do everything and he can, and I always joke his Twitter handle is something always open. And he is, because even when he's not, he's the kind of guy you can throw the football to, and he's going to come down with it. And if he doesn't come down with it, he's not going to be Quaz Watkins. He's going to make sure the defensive back is not going to come down with it. So you feel very comfortable as a quarterback. I remember I had him number 3. I had him number 2 on my personal list, and he was number 3 overall on the top 25 Eagles. He's just a phenomenal football player. He can do everything.
Where did PFF have him rated overall as wide receivers go?
I'd have to look it up. He was top 10. Look it up as we're talking. He was very high.
I'm having trouble crunching the numbers in my head. If you're number 1 at slants and you're number 2 at go routes, that kind of eats up a lot of potential passes that you can be catching.
There's a lot of routes. There's a lot of the route tree. Marvin Harrison could tell you there's a lot of routes. And I'll pull that up if I can find it in a second. But first, I'm looking at
overall ranking on wide receiver.
He was number 6. Only Tyreek Hill was number 1. The outlier, very good player. People don't realize, but more limited into the slot. Amon-Ra St. Brown was number 2. Jefferson was number 3. Adams was number 4. Diggs was number 5. AJ was number 6. Cooper Kupp, number 7. CD Lamb, 8. Keenan Allen, 9. Jamar Chase, 10.
Well,
there's your top 10.
Chase 10 surprises me a little bit, but BFF has their own way of doing their rankings. How many other potential routes do they break down and give a grade to if they're doing slants and they're doing goes? How many routes do they actually include in their overall evaluation?
Let's see. We got crossing routes. Jalen Waddle was number 1, which makes sense because he can run away from people. Wide screens, Deebo Samuel, number 1 there, makes sense. Slant routes, A.J. Brown, number 1. Amari Cooper was number 2. Out routes, Diggs was number 1. He's tremendous at that because he can shake people. In routes, Cortland Sutton from Denver, big physical guy. Comeback routes, Elijah Moore of your New York Jets was number 1.
Really?
Yeah. Hitch routes, Tyreek Hill, which makes sense. Corner routes, Jefferson. Post routes, Gabe Davis from Buffalo. Go routes, Terrence Marshall from Carolina. AJ was second. That's all the routes.
Okay. So there are a bunch, and if AJ is that highly rated, and two of them going to go a long way, but still only number 6 overall, and number 8 in Madden, which surprised me. I thought it'd be higher than 8 in any kind of compilation rating that you have. And this really surprised me. You just ran down a couple of the routes and the top ranked guys. This guy must be a good, not top, but in the top group in a bunch of different routes. Tied for 8th in the Madden ratings for the wide receiver, Amari Cooper.
Oh yeah, I mean he's
I kind of forgot that Amari Cooper was even in the league playing for the Browns last year. We had so much Amari Cooper coverage when he was a member of the Cowboys, specifically here in Philadelphia. Gets traded to Cleveland last year. Oh, by the way, mistake by the Cowboys when they did that. So they had to go out and give up a draft pick to get Cooks this year to basically replace Amari Cooper, who they could have kept and they could still have, and is still, at least per Madden, considered a top 9 receiver in this league. I'm sorry, I just didn't pay enough attention. The Browns were irrelevant until Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean that was a big problem for the Cowboys. Yeah, he's a very good route runner, tremendous route runner, top 5 route runner in this league. And when you can do that, you're going to be good as long as you have that baseline athleticism. But if you look, he was number 2 to AJ in slant routes. He was number 3 in out routes. I'm looking at it. He was number 3 in comebacks. I mean, he is a good player, and the Cowboys couldn't afford him. Sort of like Javon Hargrave, but playing for the Eagles. It's a good player. They couldn't afford him anymore, and they really missed him. That was a big problem. Their 2 biggest problems last year with that number 2 receiver, because Gallup didn't get back to where he was pre-ACL, and they were hopeful. He was a great 3rd receiver before the ACL. But remember, Cooper was their number 1. CeeDee Lamb wasn't their number 1. Cooper was their number 1.
Exactly.
And he is a really good player, and they just couldn't afford him. It's one of those things, and they missed him. And the other part was corner, the second corner. And they went out and got Cooks. And Cooks isn't Amari Cooper, but he's a solid player. And they went out and got Stephon Gilmore, who's aging, but can still play. So they really improved those 2 positions. But Amari Cooper's a very, very good player. And
right.
If Deshaun Watson gets back to being what he was, he's going to have a big year.
And the way that you stated it, I would just state it a little differently. I wouldn't say they couldn't afford him. They chose not to afford him. They chose not to pay him. They decided allocation of those funds to wide receiver wasn't necessary because they had other and or bigger, in their estimation, needs. When a year later you go out and give up a draft pick to get Cooks, and you're now paying him in the neighborhood of what you were supposed to pay Amari Cooper, well, you've rethought your position, that you're willing to put money into that other wide receiver position. Yeah, I thought they made a mistake when they moved off Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, everything's a decision. You can keep anybody if you really want to. And
Right.
They were hopeful of other guys like Gallup getting back and making that decision. CD's younger. But I'm just looking at the raw numbers too, because I didn't watch a lot of Cleveland Browns
Neither
football.
did I.
78 for 1160 and 9 touchdowns in a bad
He had
year.
1,100 yards last year?
Yeah, 1160.
Wow. Shame on me for not noticing that.
He's a really good player. I mean, the Eagles got a break when the Cowboys made that decision.
Yeah, they did.
And he's only 29, so he's still got some gas left in the tank. If Deshaun Watson plays well, but the AFC is loaded, man. I mean, the AFC, you don't even think about a team like Cleveland. They got Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett, Amari
Cooper.
Yeah. I mean,
You're right, and no one is giving them any second thoughts. I do want to mention one other wide receiver here that I know you're a bigger fan of than I am because we've discussed him here on the show because the Eagles have to face him twice a year. The top wide receivers in the Madden ratings, a 99 rating, which is the best you can get. One wide receiver got it was Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, who Kirk Cousins chose not to throw the football to with the season on the line, but I digress. Tyreek Hill, 98, Devontae Adams, 97, Cooper Kupp. Talk about a forgotten man because he was hurt last year and the Rams went from Super Bowl champion to completely irrelevant. Guilty as charged. I forgot about Cooper Kupp and how great he was the year before as the MVP of the Super Bowl. Kupp got a 96. 94, and tied at 91 was Amari Cooper and A.J. Brown. In between Jamar Chase and Amari Cooper and A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin of the Commanders. I appreciate McLaurin's a very good wide receiver. I'm not downplaying how good a wide receiver he is. If I gave you a choice, A.J. Brown or Terry McLaurin, who are you taking, Johnny Mac?
well, in that I'm going AJ, but I don't, that doesn't. Terry McLaurin is really good. Yeah, I mean, you talk to the Eagles defensive backs, they'll tell you. And one of the things, I mean, I would love to see Terry McLaurin play with I always call it a high volume quarterback. He's playing with below average quarterbacks, to be kind, and he's putting up 1,000-yard seasons pretty consistently. You could imagine if he was with Matthew Stafford and Matthew was healthy, or you bring up Jefferson and Cousins, if he was with Cousins, him throwing for 4,000 yards and then crap in the bed in the big spot, but he's going to have 1,500 yards receiving before he craps the bed. Yeah, he's a really good player. Is he A.J. Brown? No, but I think the only guys I put ahead of A.J. are Jefferson, Adams. I'm missing somebody. Maybe Chase. I like Chase. I love Chase. Chase isn't as consistent.
Well,
Tyreek Hill.
The key guy is Hill. Yeah. Some people look at
Tyreek
him
Hill.
as just the...
So Hill, Adams, Jefferson, and then you start talking. You can make arguments for other players. You start talking about AJ in that conversation.
Diggs and Chase and Kupp,
yeah,
and AJ are very similar. I like your top three. I would have the top three as well. But I'm going to stand by my Terry McLaurin is very good, but not as good as his overall rating is Madden or anywhere else. AJ Brown rated behind him. I take AJ Brown. I
take AJ Brown over him. But
how about CD Lamb?
That's tough because CD isn't as well rounded as he is. Like CD's more of a slot receiver. For those who don't know, he plays outside, but he's a really good player. I would love to see Terry McLaurin with a good quarterback.
But
I would love to see
not
Terry
with a good
McLaurin.
Quarterback, and he's not going to be with a good quarterback.
But
again
I mean,
this year.
that 2021. 2021, 2022, 77 receptions, 1,053 yards, 1,191 yards with no quarterback, essentially. I mean, that's pretty good.
Pretty good, yes. Not as good as CD Lamb. Not as good as Mike Evans. I'm sorry, I'm taking Mike Evans over.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not a vacuum. It can CD Lamb do what Terry McLaurin did in Washington? I don't know.
Here's how we decide Mike Evans. This one's pretty easy. Who's going to have the better year this year? Terry McLaurin catching the ball from Sam Howell or Mike Evans catching the ball from Baker Mayfield?
Oh, that's a tough question. Mike, if you're telling me Mike in his prime,
No,
I
Mike,
take.
this year, just this year. Who's going to
Well,
have the
no,
better year?
yeah, I know what your question. I'm trying to explain. Mike in his prime is a better receiver, but Mike is now. I don't know how old is Mike Evans.
Maybe
He's been doing
31.
it. He's been doing it for a long time. Um, he's still only 29, but
Wow. I would say 30 for
1, 2,
sure.
3, 4. But he's played a lot of football. He got to the league young. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive seasons over 1,000 yards. So I'm concerned. The only reason I hesitate is because I'm concerned about the tread off the tire with Mike Evans. But Mike Evans is a really good player. Really good player.
Yeah, and these guys are rated below Terry McLaurin. Others, John McMullen included, and the Madden rating, think a little bit more Terry McLaurin.
And Darius Slay and James Bradbury and Avonte Maddox.
Very good for all them because they got to face him twice a year. I get that. I like him. He's a very good player, but I think there are other wide receivers that are better than he are that are rated below him as of right now. But again, we're splitting hairs. We'll split hairs with Adam Kaplan from both his new gig, Pro Football Network, and Inside the Birds, and SiriusXM's NFL Radio. Our buddy Adam Kaplan up next here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a road